I'm Ron Hutchinson, the writer.
And I'm Ron Callahan, the watcher. And Ron and I have watched together quite a few times before, but not in this rather wonderful play, which is, would you describe it, Ron, as more of a comedy than a drama or a combination?
I think it nudges the far. You know, we have banging doors, we have slapstick, and it's basically, all farces are observing a pressure cooker about to blow, right? And the backstory of this is the true story of what appeared to be headed for being the biggest Hollywood disaster. When David Selznick, who was like the golden boy of Hollywood in the 1930s, but was under threat all the time because you're only as good as your next movie. He won the bidding rights for Gone with the Wind, the hottest book around at the time, and hired the hottest director, borrowed, begged, and stole the best actors. And after 3 weeks of shooting with George Cukor, who was the Spielberg of his day, he basically said, "I can't use it. I can't use a goddamn frame of what he shot." Basically, he thought they were shot from too feminine a point of view. He thought the movie looked like a romantic comedy, and George was obsessed with the dresses, with the undergarments, with how pretty the women looked, and there didn't seem to be any drama. And he's making a movie about the Civil War. Now, everybody thought that was doomed to disaster anyway, because no Civil War movie had ever made any money. Americans didn't want to go to the movies. The rest of the world didn't care about it. So to see what he thought was going to be, a two-fisted war film, talking about, and it's quite a violent book, Gone with the Wind. But the first 3 weeks were people giggling on the porch at Tara, and admiring the dresses. And George, he was known as Gorgeous George behind his back in Hollywood, and he was gone. He still stayed friends with Selznick, and I think in the end he came to admit that he wasn't the right guy to shoot it. So when Selznick takes this momentous decision to stop production, everybody thought he was finished and the movie would never see the light of day. So they bring in the go-to Mr. Fix-It writer, Ben Hecht, and basically put him in a room at 7 in the morning on Monday and said, by 8 o'clock Friday, we need a script, Ben. We need 130 pages, and let's get going. And they brought in the hottest director of the day, a guy called Victor Fleming, who was over the road on Washington Avenue on the MGM lot, and he was told, forget Wizard of Oz, turn up Monday morning and you're shooting Gone with the Wind. Oh, by the way, we haven't got a script, and you're going to be sitting in the room with the writer, who I've just found out, says Selznick, hasn't read the book. So what do? The clock's ticking, and Selznick, being a bit of a innovator, bit of a pirate, quick thinker, the way all producers have got to be, he said, we'll act out the book for you.
It seems to me that we have a fun vehicle for looking at absurdity in the operatic world that is Hollywood, and at the same time looking at the particular aspects of human behavior, and in a particular setting, a particular time, i.e. 1939, in Hollywood, which was both heavily involved with what was going on in Europe at the time, and one remove from it, which gave it a very interesting perspective on that. That's what I'm reading into the play. Ron, you can now correct me.
Yeah, I mean, everybody who spends any time in Hollywood, and I spent 30 years, and I still do stuff here and there, wants to write the Hollywood play, and usually they're very sour. They're about, they've done me wrong, the producer's the villain, the writer's the hero, the director's a putz, and I didn't want to do that because I had a riotously great time there. I made a lot of money and had some extraordinary experiences, traveled the world. So on location, my experience at Hollywood was a happy one. And I wanted to write a love letter to Hollywood while acknowledging just how crazy and sort of difficult things can be there. And there's a form of comedy that I don't think we make anymore because we just can't. That was around about the 1930s when this show is set, 1939, with The Making of With the Wind, the madcap comedy. Because I discovered this nugget of information in one of my hero, Ben Hecht, the screenwriter's autobiographies, that he went in to rewrite this script in 5 days, and he'd never read the book. So what happened was the producer, David Selznick, acted out the movie for him with Victor Fleming, the 6'5" director, playing the female parts, playing Prissy the maid. That is a farce. That is a comedy. So that is not something you can be savage about or use as a vehicle for satire. You just enjoy it. They lived on bananas and peanuts because Selznick was a believer in a diet regime. The latest fad was bananas and peanuts went straight to your brain. And allegedly, according to Hecht, who was in the room, that's all they ate for 5 days. It cannot be anything. This isn't, Lady Macbeth of Matinees. It cannot be. The material will not suit that. So, you don't often see slapstick. Slapstick on stage, it's not very, you don't get many of them for the pound these days, right? You're not often asked to choreograph slapstick.
There is quite a lot of substance in the play, especially in the latter end of the play, where we begin to examine what it is, in fact, they are doing. They're putting together this great piece of entertainment, but as Hecht points out, there are a few questions they've got to ask, especially as Jews in a difficult time, in a difficult point in history. We all have got to ask ourselves occasionally, what exactly are we doing here? Are we reinforcing stereotypes? Are we making life more difficult for the disinherited and disenfranchised? Or do we just put our heads down, take the money, and get on with it? So, nothing in there is inherent in it, and it's one of the characters' main driving forces. But as Ron said, we'll be concentrating on telling a funny story, letting the story reveal itself in a way which holds us in this comedic hand and allows us to glance, when required, at the more serious aspects of the story without banging it over the head with a mallet. I think just allow that to breathe on its own right. I hope that's what we'll be doing.